the social media derby. Before we get into the episode, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment in the comment section, share if you can. Anything you can do to help with the engagement will be super, super appreciated. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. Any kind of support we really appreciate. So, Johns, how you doing, mate? You had a bit of a busy weekend. Did you manage to actually catch any of the riveting international football?
I saw mostly highlights. Yeah, just had a friend visiting, so I had to do a lot of touristy stuff. But yeah, it's not all that interesting to watch when there's nothing really to play for. But I will definitely, obviously, be tuning in massively to the Euros and all of that kind of stuff where there's something actually at stake. Obviously went and saw the Colombia-Spain match on Friday, which was,
that was a good laugh.
apart from the crowd and the atmosphere, was a pretty boring match in itself. But yeah, we got the result that we wanted out of that. But yeah, it's been an interesting weekend, yeah.
Yeah, no, there were a couple of cool, interesting results dotted around, even though like you said, it was friendly season. I just feel like this March international break, they've got to try and fill it with something more meaningful. I know they're trying to like relax it because, you know, all the big leagues are coming to a culmination of their season and you don't want to, you know, put really highly competitive games on during this period. But otherwise, it's just a really boring 2 weeks. And I feel like it's just dragged out so long. Like, obviously, you had the Spain-Colombia game that we went to see on the Friday and a few fixtures on Friday. But even that game, it was like Spain C against Colombia B. Like, I know Luis Diaz played and a couple of the Colombian big hitters played, but none of the really big Spanish players played, really. And the England-Brazil game, oh, what an absolute snooze fest. We'll get into it now quickly. I know this is not an England podcast, but we'll quickly get into it because there was a couple of players from our teams playing. Well, there should have been. Obviously, Saka pulled out. Ben White has asked not to be selected. We'll get into those little bits a little bit later on. But, Johns, what did you make of the game first? England 0, Brazil 1.
Yeah, I mean, didn't seem like just generally the most exciting of games. And obviously, Endrick, he looks like an absolute baller, and he has done for all of the highlights that I basically watched of him so far. The fact that he's 17 and built the way that he is, I think that man is going to be an absolute problem. Real Madrid really have all of the Infinity Stones at this point in time. I don't think we were terrible. Wow. Obviously, we didn't have all of our kind of first teamers out, really, or all of our best players, and again, there's not that much to play for, so the passion wasn't necessarily there. But I don't think we were terrible, but I do think it's a reminder that like we're not just going to roll teams over, and it's not just going to be easy for us, despite everyone saying that we should be winning the Euros and this, that, and the other. So it's kind of a bit of a wake up call that other teams are good. In the Euros, we're going to come up against a few different ones, right? So Portugal, France, the Netherlands. There's a lot of decent teams around right now, and even decent's probably not even generous enough, really, because that France team, for example, even against Germany, just looking at the team sheet there, man, is mental. So, yeah, we're going to have some problems, but I'm not reading too much into it, really. I don't think it was... Yeah, it's not the end of the world losing to Brazil in a kind of like a friendly match, but yeah, it's a bit of a reminder that other national teams are very good as well. What did you make of it?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, mate. I think the media's been in absolute overdrive, waffling and gassing the England team up in the last week or so since the last round of Prem fixtures and kind of in the lead up to these two friendlies. And I think it could be a positive in the long run. I will slightly disagree though, because I think England weren't great at all, and I think some of the experiments that Southgate made absolutely fell flat on their ass. Because I think the Chelsea lads, no offense, any of our Chelsea mates, I see you, Ed, absolutely stank it up. Chilwell was absolutely horrendous. The amount of crosses he swung in that went off and went to Rosed looking like wayward shots was unbelievable. And I actually think left back is a huge problem area for England going forward. If Luke Shaw could keep fit, you'd be all right. But the backup, there's no strength in depth. Like there's just, I'd actually say you're probably better off putting, a Joe Gomez or someone who's not really a left back into left back over playing someone like Chilwell, who's just number one injury prone as hell, and number two, you know, I haven't seen him put in a decent shift for a while, and yeah, he was thinking it up. The Conor Gallagher in midfield. You know what? Yeah, I get it. I get why the Chelsea fans like Conor Gallagher. I get why some other rival fans quite like Conor Gallagher because he works hard. He puts. He I just said Chilwell doesn't really put a shift in. Conor Gallagher definitely puts a shift in. He chases people. He harries people. He's good probably at the press, but he's hasn't got enough quality to play in an England midfield. We've got one of the best midfields we've had in ages. And for once, we've actually got a midfield that I think we can mimic some of the best teams in England's formation and style, and we don't do it because yeah, it was just absolutely baffling that we didn't give it a try and play the Holy Trinity in midfield, which would be Rice in the six, Bellingham and Foden as tens, basically completely copying what City do right in their current midfield, and that works so well with kind of Rodri in the six, and then you've got the two tens kind of pushing forward. Um, but yeah, for some reason he thought a friendly against Brazil wasn't going to be kind of low risk enough for him to try that more attacking midfield, and I think it was a big opportunity missed. And then the other things I can't put on Southgate, the people that were given an opportunity to shine. Ollie Watkins, I'm looking at you, mate. Terrible performance. I don't think he really, kind of threw his hat in the ring with that performance. And I think he's left the door open a bit now for Ivan Toney, probably against Belgium, to come in. And if he plays well, I think he might gazump him to that kind of backup striker role. Yeah, I don't think Anthony Gordon was great. I think he didn't take the opportunity that was given to him, considering kind of how choppy Marcus Rashford's form has been. And yeah, I felt like it was a really flat performance, and I think Southgate could have done a lot more to kind of set the team up a bit more attacking. Because here's a question I want to ask you, Johnson. I've heard a few people talk about it with regards to England. Generally, we know we're playing absolute terrorist football when it comes to the style of play, right? We have so many attacking players, but he generally plays very cautious football. Do you think that this was a good opportunity for us to play more of an attacking lineup or a different approach? Because we may have to play that way in a certain game at the Euros. Let's say we're losing, to France in the last 20 minutes. We're going to have to kind of go almost Ten Hag style against Liverpool and just at some point throw the kitchen sink at a team. Don't you think this was a good opportunity to try? Or do you believe Southgate kind of the changes he made were fine and the players just didn't kind of step up? What do you think?
I mean, I don't think there was anything massively shocking about his team selection, though, really. Bringing Gallagher in, that's like a typical Gareth Southgate move, right? Like I said that Gallagher should go to the Euros, but I don't want him to start next to Rice. My idea was that he would be like a backup to Rice and, give that same kind of performance in terms of like 110%. But I mean, if he's planning to play Jordan Henderson, then Gallagher is maybe a good kind of mini Jordan Henderson to play in there next to Rice. So it's not that surprising to see that. Ben Chilwell's not majorly surprising to see either. So I think it's just typical Southgate, really. He seems obviously like he's pretty stubborn in setting his ways, right? He hasn't really wanted to go back on anything he's really done. Despite all of the people calling him out, he still keeps going ahead as he planned before and as he's been doing before. So I don't see why we expect him to change. He's not going to change. Like, he's taken us to finals of this and that, semi-finals of World Cup and whatever. I don't think he's failed enough to really think that he's wrong. So, I mean, he's obviously got a terrible record against elite nations, but I don't think he thinks he sees that as a major problem. He's trying to house his way into a victory against like a really good team. And in my mind, I never expected that he was going to try and do more attacking style of football, because I don't think that's the way that Gareth Southgate plays. I don't think that's what he knows either. Like, was he not a defender in his time? He was a bloody Brexit defender. So I'm not expecting that he knows all that much about attacking football, to be perfectly honest with you, especially if he wants to play people like Maguire and Jordan Henderson frequently. Right? He's not going to really. He's clearly got no idea about how to progress the ball forward and be an attacking team. So I'm not shocked. It is obviously disappointing, but I'm not shocked.
Yeah, no. I guess that the way I'm looking at it was, this is probably his last tournament, right? I just thought, you know what, this is your last roll of the dice to try and get a major trophy in your England time, and not be kind of looked at as the Neely man. And why not just experiment a little bit? And I'm not saying that I think Southgate needs to go all gung ho for every single game as soon as the Euros kicks off. I'm just saying you've got to have some, like what you said about Arsenal in previous episodes. You've got to have some different options of ways and styles of play. You can't, and by that I'm not saying, please God, any England fans that are going to come and say to me afterwards, he has done that. He's played a back five and now he's playing a back four. That's him changing it. No, I mean like the next step. I don't mean just like the set up on Football Manager the ultra defensive and then the defensive shape. I'm saying, develop a bit of positive attacking style of football. Not saying you have to default to that and make it your kind of one style of play, but just mix it up, because there's going to be times when England and this style of Gareth Southgate ball is going to work. We've seen it work before against certain decent nations or bigger teams. He's beaten Germany. I can't really remember any other big team that we've really beaten, to be honest. A lot of time we get quite good draws, but yes, it's definitely possible that his style works, but you always need some variety, and I think we've actually got the players to execute that as well. So it almost feels like a bit of a waste and a bit of a shame. But yeah, not to offend any of our FA friends, but yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the next era of England once Gareth Southgate leaves, and hopefully a more progressive, adventurous manager comes in and properly, I think maximizes the potential of the players that we have in the team at the moment. But let's get into a couple of other kind of talking points around this England game. Obviously, we'll start first with Bukayo Saka pulling out of the squad, and then kind of throwing his availability in doubt for the big crunch clash that we'll talk about a little bit later against Man City next weekend. What do you think, John? Do you think this is just a precaution? Do you think this is kind of like Fergie when he would just, a couple of his big players would, suddenly withdraw from squads when they're entering the title race? Or are you actually genuinely worried he might not feature against City?
I think it's more of the former. I think it's more of a precaution. Saka, he's played so frequently, so much this season, last season for international tournaments, etc. He's been pretty much a fixture of every team he's been in. So I think it was probably like a Mikel Arteta kind of like, all right, let's give him a bit of a break before we go into the big City game. These aren't games that really mean anything. And Gareth Southgate has seen enough of Bukayo Saka to know that he's going to go to the Euros. He's obviously going to see more between now and the end of the season. So I think it was more of a precaution, just, let's keep him fit. I have heard some rumours that he's been holding knocks and carrying knocks now for quite some time. So given all of that, I'm happy to see him, take a bit of a breather and get a rest for these couple of games, these couple of England games. So I think it's more of a precaution. I think if it was something more serious, we probably would have heard about it prior to the England kind of call up and everything. So I think it's more just keeping him fresh, keeping him fit for the big City game.
So you think he will play? Yeah, you've got
Yeah,
no
no,
doubt
I
he'll
think he
be in the
will play.
starting.
I can't say that I can't see him coming off early. Maybe he comes off after 60, 70 minutes in the Man City game, depending on how it's going. Um, but yeah, no, I see him starting that match.
Yeah. I 100% thought, and I think it was Gary Neville said it on the Overlap or something like that. He said, or Stick to Football on the Overlap channel or whatever, that he's almost 100% certain one of
Yeah,
the Arsenal lads was going to be pulled out. Um, and what do you know? Gary Neville knows Arsenal. He knew Arsenal last season with the bottling, and he knew Arsenal again now, and he called it. He's on the money. But I think it's just from experience, isn't it? Because Fergie was the master of this. He used to yank our best English players out of squads every single time it got close to the title, the conclusion of a title race and stuff. So I think it's just good management from Arteta, really. And I've heard some people, make some big claims, or you shouldn't pull out of squads. I think even Roy Keane was kind of arguing against Gary Neville on that Stick to Football episode, that you shouldn't do that, and that playing for your country is, one of the proudest things you can do, which I think is a valid and fair point. But let's be real, Saka's not going to lose sleep over missing a couple of caps. He's going to amass probably close to 100 caps in his career. Like, losing out on a few, I get what Roy Keane's saying and the sentiment and everything like that, and I respect it. But you've got to try and maximise players' careers, make sure they're healthy, and not try and hobble them because they needed to play 60 minutes against Brazil in a meaningless friendly. I think it's the right call to make. And you guys will probably benefit from it, to be honest. I don't know. Do you remember if any City players got pulled out? I think all the England City players stayed in, right? I think Walker came off injured in this game after 20 minutes, which is a bit of a worry for them. But
well, I
John
mean that
Stones
proves
played, right?
why we do what we do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Walker coming off injured is the exact reason why these kinds of things happen. So, um, yeah, no, I think Foden was in there, Stones was in there.
Mm.
Outside of that, do they really have anybody else that's in the England team or a major fixture in there? I don't really think so.
Nah, not anymore. They had Calvin
Yeah.
Phillips, obviously, but now he's stinking
no
it up at West Ham instead. Yeah, so no, that's yeah, I agree with you. I think Saka will be fine. It'll be one of those things. He'll rock up in the big game on Sunday, and I'm sure he'll be fit enough to play the whole game. I don't see him even coming off unless you guys are absolutely slapping them or getting slapped. Then I think you might have some precautionary measures get taken. But otherwise, I think it's such an important game. He'll probably play the full 90. Which, you know what though, John? So I will say my alarm bells, and touch all the wood, but my alarm bells did go off a little bit when I read that tweet or whatever it was, that bit of news come out that Saka's been carrying some knocks and he's kind of trying to manage it throughout the season, and he's had some niggles and knocks and stuff, and he's been playing injured for quite a few months. I'll be real, that's exactly what they were. You remember under Ollie, those were all the rumors that were coming out around. No, not only Rashford but Martial as well. And Martial's the better example I'm going to use for this. Like, if you do keep playing players through injuries, even if they're small little niggles, it can lead to other things. And you've seen how ravaged Martial's career has become pretty much after Ollie's left, right? I don't think he's ever had a season where he's played more than 20 games. He's constantly out. So, yeah, one thing I think you guys got to look at in the summer, and you probably agree, John, so I'm sure you've said it before, you've got to get some cover for him on that right wing so that Saka can come out of games, when you're winning them, and not have to play the full 90s or, play too many minutes. Because I know he's probably one of your best players, if not your best player, but, he's got a lot of minutes in those legs already for his age. He's got to be managed more like Arteta's doing right now. Pull him out of squads, rest him. And I get it. Right now, you probably don't trust Reece Nelson enough to give him, Arteta doesn't trust Reece Nelson enough to give him, more minutes. But you've got to get someone in there so that he can, Saka can actually rest up and not carry injuries and take a proper break. You know what I mean? Let's get into the United bit of good news. Oh, I guess you could say the Saka withdrawal from the squad is good news for you guys as well. But it's Kobbie Mainoo, my boy Kobbie. Got a call up. Was going to be in the under 21s. Gareth Southgate said it was probably a bit too early, saw the Liverpool game, said, F that, I'm bringing a boy in. He's the future. Called him up. Stevie Holland, Ben White's best mate, meets him at the St. George's Park, brings him in, gets his debut. I think he only got 10, 15 minutes, right? I think he came on at the 8th minute. Didn't have that much to do, really, in terms of impressing. He just kept the ball ticking over, and it was pretty steady, pretty stable, nothing too spectacular. But what do you make of the call-up? I know we've been bantering back and forth over the last couple of weeks about my increased excitement around Kobbie Mainoo. But what did you make of the call-up, and what have you made of his little cameo and first cap?
Yeah, no, I think he deserves it. I mean, the only thing I'll say is like the earlier comment that we've got like one of the best midfielders we've ever had. I think we do in certain spurts. Like I mean, when we were doing that last episode and having to pick those central midfielders, some of them are stinky, man. Like the fact that I had to put Gallagher in there, I'm not happy with
You
that.
didn't have
And the
to.
fact that just the fact that Jordan Henderson was like even on that short list of players, and we don't have other people that just kind of fully eclipse him. That kind of stinks, man. And so I mean, and that takes nothing away from Mainoo at all. But I think that's the perfect opportunity for him to come in because you've got people like Bellingham, who's obviously class. I'm not going to say he's world class, so I'm not going to do that Rio type thing, but very, very good player playing for one of the biggest teams, or if not the biggest team in the world. You've got Rice, who is, I mean, looking like he's going to be a fixture of that England team for the next 5-10 years, possibly the next captain of England. I didn't even realize he's already got 50 caps for England, which is mental at the fact that he's only 25.
Mad.
Which makes Mbappe's whole stuff even more mental. But yeah, no, I think like it's a perfect opportunity for a young player like that to come in and learn from the two of them and actually show like, these lot aren't doing it. I'm going to come in and be better than all of them. So I think he deserves a call up. I would say out of the list so far for form this season, he has looked like one of the best. So I think he's more than deserving of the opportunity. And I would say Gallagher, Calvin Phillips, Jordan Henderson, all of you lot need to fix up because if you're getting an 18-year-old coming into that team when we've got players like Bellingham, Rice, and one of the best generations of our whole England team together, you lot stink, man. You lot should be trying to force your way into that team. And at this point in time, I mean, I might take it back and have to say that you know what, Mainoo should go to the Euros, even if he's not going to play all the time. He looks like he wants it a bit more than everybody else, and he looks like he's got maybe a bit more quality and class to him, even though he's very young. So, very happy for him. I think under 21s is a nice one if we are stacked in the midfield and there's no chance of him getting in. But at this point in time, there's gaps there. I think he can get into that team. So, I figure you may as well just stick him straight into the full men's team and see what happens. And yeah, I think he's the right kind of player to play alongside like a Rice. You've got like the kind of industrial type of defender in Rice, or industrial type of midfielder in Rice, and then you've got Mainoo, who's maybe a little bit more got better touch on the ball, a little bit better in and around tight spaces. Probably works quite well together, especially if you've got people like Maguire behind him. So maybe he can make up for the fact that Maguire can't pass a ball. On the floor, that is, he definitely can spray balls left, right, and center. He can't pass the ball. Yeah, he just can't pass the ball on the floor. So, yeah, I think it could work out quite well. And I think this is exactly the type of fixture where you should be playing players like that. Right? I know that you obviously want to use it as like a tactical thing to try and test out our more attacking players, but if you're not going to do that, at the very least, get some young players in and try and test a couple of the people in the squad that are iffy, ifs and buts to go to the Euros this summer. So, I mean, Gordon, Gallagher, and Mainoo, and Watkins, obviously, probably the big ones where he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna see if you're really ready for it." And I think, despite the fact that Mainoo was on for about 10-15 minutes, he probably comes the best out. Looks the best out of the three of those lot because they were absolutely stinky. So, yeah, not bad for Mainoo, and I think he could learn quite a lot from being in that team, and it could benefit us. Like we've got other young players kind of carrying us or kind of putting a big burden on their shoulders. So I don't see why he can't try and contribute to that.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I'm gonna have my little Kobbie moment. So yeah, this might make one of the clips. I'll be real, but no, I 100% honestly speaking, I was really, really happy for him to get the call up. I was kind of hoping he was going to stay in the under 21s, and that we could keep kind of, keep this progression in stages rather than kind of, obviously it made me feel great to be able to post him on the stories with his little grin in his England training kit and all that kind of stuff being announced. I think it's a great moment for him and his family, and he seems like a really level-headed lad. But I was slightly like, oh damn, I wish he kind of had a bit of time in the under 21s, getting the setup, and then move up after he's had a few more games for United. But my opinion has probably waned a little bit just because I've heard a few people say, and I think it does kind of hold a bit of weight, that playing like whatever it is, 15, 16 games for United is not really the same as playing 15 games for Bournemouth or a smaller team, because you have a lot of pressure. And I feel like, and I'm not saying it like United's out on an island. I say it's the same playing for Arsenal, playing for Liverpool, playing for one of the big clubs. I think in such a pivotal position like that, I think it's a big deal, and it takes a lot of character to be able to do that. We talked about Saka earlier. Saka did very similar. Obviously, he bounced around. He was at like left back and left wing and right wing and kind of all over the place. But he really, in some of your darkest moments, had some standout kind of performances which really showed character, and he was almost kind of putting you guys on your back. And I don't think Mainu's done that, but I do think in many games this season that he's participated in, he's been our best midfielder, which is bonkers, right? We've got Casemiro, McTominay, who obviously I don't rate, or a lot of United fans don't really rate as a midfielder, but he's been played there sometimes. You had Amrabat, who everyone thought was going to be, but I saw the tweets about better than Rice and all that stuff. Boy, that's gone left. Who else have we got in midfield? I'm missing someone. We've got to have someone else in midfield, surely.
Bruno,
but
Mount, you've got
Mount,
you've got other
sure.
players. I know
We've
that they're
spent a
further
lot of money
forward,
on
but
Mount.
I mean, like you've got other players as well that should be doing better than him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's been a standout in many of our games, and just the level of maturity he's shown. I think I wouldn't say it's justified the fast track, but I can understand it, and I can understand why he's been drafted in. I don't think, I'm not going to say he's like the Bellingham levels of maturity, because I think that's pretty freakish, right? Bellingham's not even 20 yet, and he kind of plays like a veteran and has the IQ and the mentality of like a real, kind of seasoned pro. I couldn't say that about Mainu yet, but he definitely seems quite calm, and he tends to make the right decisions. He tends to, make the right calls when he has the ball. So I don't think it's outrageous. I don't think it's, I've seen a lot of rubbish go out online from smaller clubs like Villa fans and all this kind of stuff, saying Mainu's rubbish and he's average and he's only in there because he's, a United player. I think that may have been the case with many of our kind of mid to rubbish players in the past. But I don't think we're at anywhere near our strongest enough place to be able to just get call-ups because England players are playing for Man United. Fair dues back in the
you just got to look through
that kind of stuff. Sure, but
what are you guys like? Sixth, you're seventh, right?
Sixth.
So sixth, right? So you look through all the teams ahead of you. How many of them have good English centre midfielders? Not that many, right? So, you got Rice. We've got Rice at Arsenal. You got, James Maddison. He's further forward, so I don't think he's really in the picture for one of those two positions. Gallagher's at Chelsea, who are terrible, and he's not their best midfielder, right?
Like
Mainu's at the sixth place. He's at the sixth place team, and he's arguably your best centre midfielder. So it's not all that crazy. Like who from Villa at that position deserves to get in ahead of him in a centre mid position? No one I can think of. Who at Man City is English and could play in that position? No one I can think of. So, it's not all that crazy, really. And I think you just look at the Brazil team. They're playing bloody 17-year-old Endrick, who I know is a wonder kid and is going to Real Madrid and all that, right? But it's not all that crazy to call up young players into the team. Remember, I know Michael Owen, again, we're not comparing these to Mainu, but like Michael Owen got into the England team when he was really young. There's Bellingham gets into the England team when he's really young. Saka got into the England team when he was really young. It's what we should be doing. We need to bring youth players through the team. I do understand that you should be giving a chance to like mid to low position teams in the Premier League like a chance if they've got like an outstanding player, like people like Tony, for example, Solanke. They deserve a chance, but there's no one in those teams that's like a good centre midfielder that really could play in that position. So, I mean, I don't think it's outrageous to play Kobbie Mainoo, right? I don't understand where that all comes from. We've been doing that for a long time, so it's not crazy to put a young player in your team.
This is it, though. A lot of the shouts I've seen are, and I'm not trying to take it there because I don't think I've seen it massively from Liverpool fans, but people have said, "Oh, Harvey Elliott should be in there. Curtis Jones should be in there instead." And I'm going to try and keep it really respectful. You're obviously going to think I'm going to be biased, right? But I really like those players. I think especially Curtis Jones, back end of last season, I felt was super underrated. He was Liverpool's best midfielder last season when they were in the mud, super mudded. And he's been playing pretty well this season, but he's got injured. So I think the simple answer to that one is that's not even a discussion because he's not available. If he was available, I think that's a fair argument to make. Although I might still choose Mainoo because of the style of player that he is.
I don't know if they're comparable players, though.
Yeah, that's my point. I think Jones is more progressive. Yeah, Jones is more progressive, more attacking. I think Kobbie Mainoo can sit, and I'm not comparing him to Rice in terms of style of play or quality, but I think he's multifunctional in a similar way to Rice. I think Rice can play 8 and 6. I think Kobbie can play 8 and 6. I don't think he'd play 10. I don't think he's that adventurous, right? Whereas I think Jones is pretty much. He's a final phase type of midfielder. I don't know if he's got.
Yeah, he's not keeping the ball ticking over. You need someone that's going to keep the ball ticking over. And I don't. No. And this is the mistake that we made back in like the golden era as well. Like instead of choosing Carrick, who would have kept the ball ticking over for our better players that were like more progressive in front of him to do more damage, we just played all of the ones that could do damage but couldn't keep the ball ticking over really until Scholes got into like really old age. So, I mean, it's about the styles, and I think Kobbie Mainoo is actually even I wouldn't compare him to Rice because even Rice is maybe a slightly different player as well. So I don't think we have really another player like that in the team that I can think of that does what Kobbie Mainoo can do. And I think that's where we probably need to look at. All right, we need this certain style of player, and I'd love if it's a question of him or Henderson, give me him all day. So
no, I agree with you. No, but I do agree on that point, right? I think sometimes United fans get rightly criticised for overgassing Mainoo because I do think there's huge elements of that, right? But the style comment you made is quite true. I'm not saying it like he's a one in a million because I think there are other players for other countries that play in a similar way to Mainoo, right? But I agree with you. I just meant like Rice can play 6 and 8, Mainoo can play 6 and 8. They play them differently, but they're probably one of the only midfielders that we've got that are playing regularly for their team and performing well to very well in Rice's case in that kind of, flexible, they can play 8 and 6, 8 and 6. But I would agree, Mainoo is definitely he's way more of a conductor than I think Rice is. More of like when he plays in a 6, he's a destroyer. When he plays in an 8, he's much more. He's a P&P up and down like beast. Whereas I feel like Mainoo, even when he's playing the 8, I was surprised against Liverpool because he took bare man on and like beat them, which was another facet of his play that we haven't really seen, right? Like I know we saw it against Wolves where he danced through a few players, but he hasn't done that in many of his other performances. He's always kind of been more of the conductor and the deep line player, keeping the ball ticking. It's part of the skill set that comes as being a conductor, right? Is that close ball control, right? Like I'm pretty sure back in the day, and again, I don't want to go crazy here, but like Sergio Busquets could dance around man as well if he really wanted to, but that wasn't his role, right? He would just get out of trouble and play the ball forward. And I don't know if Southgate's going to be asking Mainoo to like, dance around this man and this man and this man. He's going to be saying, when Maguire gives you a hospital pass that puts you in trouble, get out of it and play it on. So, I mean, that to me is, you know what I mean? Like, even Rice, I think, they're both going to be having to deal with awkward situations. And, I mean, you saw it against Brazil. Paqueta,
that they were going mental on Bellingham. Bellingham was getting battered left, right, and centre. Right, we're gonna get up against physical teams where we need to be able to keep the ball and either draw fouls or get out of trouble and play the ball forward. Give it to players like Foden, give it to players like Bellingham, and so on. Now, Gallagher's not of that profile, right? He can run around and he's really good off the ball, and he's going to give you 110% every time. But you really need people, especially if you're going to do this like Southgate style of football, you really do need people that can hold the ball and keep it and play it on and not piss it away. And I think Mainu fits that profile better than, anyone else that we've got really, apart from Rice and Bellingham. So I don't see too much of an argument with it. And that's where I say, like, as much as we do have really good midfielders today, we've also got some stinkers, man. Like, how have we got no one else that can keep a ball and have good close control and keep the ball ticking over? Like, where's the Carrick of this generation? Where are those kind of men in this generation? I'm not really seeing that many of them. So, I mean, I think Mainu deserves a shot, and if he can kind of keep that level head like he did when he came into the Man United team and kind of settle down some chaos, then all the better, because tournament football is chaos. So I don't know why Liverpool fans are trying to get Curtis Jones. It's just another part of their whole, we're not treated like we're English narrative. I get it, but Harvey Elliott's not. That's not even comparable. Harvey Elliott can't defend to save his life. He's positionally useless when it comes to being in his own half. Like, great if you were trying to get him over Maddison or get him in over somebody else.
No, he's not better than Maddison.
Yeah, let's not have the conversation about him and Mainu, because they're nowhere near the same player.
No, you're right. There's part opportunity, there's part style elements, there's part just, what, the kid's got it. I'm not gonna go wild and say all the other things, but he's got the potential and the character to be able to potentially play at this level. So just like you said, let's see if he's up to it. Let's see if he can play in the England team at big tournaments in a bit part role or whatever role was given to him. And let's just see how it goes. Let's just wrap up this England segment then real quickly, because this isn't the England derby. Southgate to United, hell no. If this happens, I saw Stephen Howson from Stretford Paddock, big him up, say that there'll be a bigger protest than when there was against the Super League. And I'm got to be honest, Johns, I'm on that Virgin train or LNER, whatever it is, to go and protest against Gareth Southgate if he becomes the Man United manager. And I'll tell you what, Big Sir Jim has been chatting on every podcast and platform recently, and he's been saying all the right things. If he hires people that go and make this decision, boy, we're in for some Todd Bowley settings football going forward in terms of just absolute uselessness and chaos. So I've got to believe that the extremely prestigious outlet that is the Daily Star that reported this is waffling out of their asses. And I'm going to hope that is the case. And they're just putting two and two together because I think Sir David Brailsford is mates with Southgate or has somewhat of a relationship with him. And that's the reason why.
The timing window fits together as well, right? Like they say that you're looking for a new manager by the end of the season. He's going to be out. It looks like he's going to be out of a job at the end of the Euros. It just timing wise, it lines up, but style wise and everything else that makes sense tells me no, that won't happen. But selfishly, it would be hilarious. So get him in.
Well, we know what you're.
Let him deal with it. It would be lovely.
When he brings in bloody Middlesbrough players, all his transfers are Middlesbrough because he does another Ten Hag and just buys all the players that he knows from Middlesbrough from 15 years ago. Honestly, I'm telling you.
Steve Holland in as assistant manager. It'll be lovely. Get them all in.
Yeah, shocking. Let's hope that's absolute waffle. And I'm hearing other stuff too, reading other stuff that, they might give Ten Hag the last year of his contract and just let him go for free rather than sack him, because it will obviously be quite a hefty bit of compensation they'll have to pay him. So barring a disastrous end to the season, that looks like the most likely course of action going forward. And I've got to be honest with you, I wouldn't be absolutely livid if that happened. As long as we get the structure in, that's the most important thing for me at the moment. Get the right structure in, and then, the manager and whatever else, the players and all those things decisions come after that. So let's hope the Southgate news is just breeze and like you said, just the media doing media stuff.